I think pretty much if there was anything I could take home from this show, it would be one of those. They're an air-cooled V8, they're gorgeous. And a Bedford QL. QLR no less. Now that's quite a rare beast. Alright, let's have a look at the GMCs. They did open and closed cab, there's a closed cab behind it.
And was used as a cargo carrier to carry the weaponry required to service the tanks.
Thank you very much. Very nice to see that. And they've got a very, very distinctive exhaust note. You can always tell a Jimmy when it's coming towards you. They sound completely different from anything else. Yeah, fairly standard Jimmy. They have what they call a stake side, and they have fold-down seats in the back for carrying troops. So I'll ask the lady if she knows anything about this truck. Different QLR bodies for different purposes. I don't know what this one is. It appears to be one cabin in the back. It's a command body. Okay, you can see the aerial stacks up. This is a tall aerial that can be put out. That's how it's stowed. It's got little shades that come down over the windows.
This 1944. It went to Normandy in June 44 with British and Canadian artillery. Went all the way up. I think it ended up in Berlin.
And from another Bedford product. And this is an MW. Hello, John. This is an Aeroscreen MW, which means it's a very early one. They weren't really designed with crew comfort in mind. No windscreen to speak of, no doors, much in the way of seating. You're nearly sitting on the floor really, aren't you? But again, used in different theatres of war. What I'd like to point out on this particular one is it's got some very early tyres on it. Now, I'm a bit of a tyres anorak really, because modern tyres, you can't often get the right tyres for a wartime vehicle for them to look right. So if you see a vehicle that's actually got its original War Department marked tyres on it, 1939 those tyres were made. They're out of proper gun dipped India rubber. They will last forever if they are looked after. John, tell us a bit about it, will you?
Yeah, as you say, it's an early MW Aeroscreen found in a garage not too many years ago by the great Toby Jones. You know, we all know Toby. This is his second year at War and Peace. And done a bit of restoration on it. The idea is we're not going to put it back to factory condition. You wouldn't have seen them in the field in factory condition, and I'm not going to replace anything that doesn't need replacing. If I take a bit of wood off this vehicle, that's a bit of its history gone. So everything we can keep original, we've kept original. We painted the outside just to weatherproof it. The interior still has its original paint. We don't think it ever saw civilian service. We think it was demobbed straight into the scrapyard and rescued from the scrapyard. Like most of this vehicle, it's a bitzer. They put them together from bits they had over the years as they got broken and repaired. But it's pretty original. A lot of original fittings, and as Aeroscreens go, we're really proud of it. It gets used for enacting, and we like to think the old girl likes a bit of use, not to be left in the shed and polished.
Excellent, thank you very much for that. As I say, I saw this for the first time last year and fell completely in love with it. What a smashing truck. Thank you very much indeed. Alright, here we got the Steyr. 2 Steyrs. Now I really like these as well. I don't know a huge amount about them, but they're an air-cooled V8 and they sound lovely. And I know this man knows all about this vehicle, so the easy way is for me to hand the microphone to him and let him tell you all about it.
Afternoon, yeah, this is a Steyr 1500 PKW. It's made by Steyr. It's part of the standardised vehicle programme. It's a V8 3.5 litre engine, and as far as I'm aware, made about 18,000 variants of this type of vehicle. This particular vehicle was found in Normandy near Caen It was probably destroyed in about July 1944 after the D-Day. If you look at the bonnet, you can see the shrapnel damage to the vehicle. When I bought it, it had no back end, it had been set alight, and also it was heavily damaged during the fighting in Normandy.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. That was great. Now we've got one here, very similar machine. I think slightly different bodywork, but I'm maybe about to be told different. But I'd like to know a little bit about this one. Who's the man who knows about this one? Or the lady?
Okay, so the second Steyr is the same as the one before, except that there is no camouflage yet since we restored it recently. Little else to do. In fact, we just came back from France for the show.
Oh, and a Scamel. The Scamels are coming, hurrah, hurrah. Now the Scamel is what we call a prime mover. Designed in the late 20s originally, and developed over the 30s, and right up into the 50s. And these were in service well after the war. It's what we call a heavy wrecker. So this will move just about anything. It's got a winch under the back of it, which has an enormous capacity. Usually a Gardner diesel, I think. It's a Gardner, yes. And it's a bit multicoloured, this one. It's sort of part RAF and part farm, I think. So there's got to be a story to that. So I'm going to ask the man about his truck.
Hello there, this is a 1945 Scamel Pioneer medium-wheeled recovery truck. The reason for the colour scheme is that we thought this was a Remy vehicle. Most of these got delivered to Remy. This was 1945, but we could never find its military history. We went through all the usual channels and a few non-usual channels. Then by chance, some 18 months ago, we found out that she was actually delivered to the RAF in May 1945. So I'm in the process of repainting it from the civilian scheme, because we didn't know its military history, into the post-war RAF high visibility colours.
Marvellous, and what a lovely thing it is too. These were used for recovering other heavy lorries. They were also used, I know, by the RAF for dragging aircraft away off airfields when they crashed. If you belly land a Lancaster, then you need something pretty hefty to move it. And I've seen photographs of heavy bombers being pulled off runways on their bellies by these things. That's a lot of weight. Thank you. Yeah, now these things have also got something else for you to watch as it's going round the arena. Watch the suspension. Now these fellas, I was talking to this chap in the bar last night while I was drinking my orange juice, and one of these trucks was built in France and one of them was built in Germany, and they're Ford V8s. And there was a Ford factory in Russia, there was a Ford factory in America, in England, in France, in Germany, and they made vehicles for anybody who'd pay them. So these are both German Army Fords, one of which was made in France, one of which was made in Germany. But there are some interesting differences between the two. Now, is this the French one? This is the German one. He's got the French one. Which one has the wider cab? The French one has the wider cab. And we couldn't figure out why, and it occurred to me perhaps that maybe the French were trying to waste materials, so they made fewer of them for a given amount of metal and wood. Well, either that or they thought the Germans were fat, yes. That's possible too. Watt stands for War Office Truck, by the way, that were left behind at Dunkirk, and the British troops put the engines out of action by running them with no oil in, were all re-engined by the Wehrmacht with the engines for these trucks, which were made in Cologne, and then sent east on Operation Barbarossa. So if you look at pictures of German troops in Russia, they're very often driving British Fords and British Bedfords, which would have been re-engined with Cologne-built Ford engines and Opel Blitz engines. So there's a thing. They've got Siamese centre ports, and they don't sound like any other V8 in the world. Now there's a little part of me that's a hot rodder. And there was a fella called Zora Duntoff who worked for General Motors in the 50s, and he designed a thing called the small block Chevy. And what he didn't tell General Motors when he was designing the small block Chevy was that he was designing an overhead valve 250 horsepower V8 that would bolt straight into his Ford V8 car and treble the horsepower without actually cutting anything, because it bolts straight in. Thank you. Okay, so the next event we've got is at 15:15, 3:15, and it's called War in the Desert, from Alamein to Tunis in World War II.